ESG. It's the scoring system. It's about to be codified in the EU. And here's how this is going to affect you. There are about, I can't remember what the standard is, but there's about 15 companies that will fall under this umbrella. Ford is one. McDonald's is another.
Oh, it's way more than that.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
American companies?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're talking probably at least hundreds, probably thousands of American companies.
I only saw lists at about 15. Okay, so here's how this is going to affect. If you read the first book, The Great Reset, you know that one of its benefits to the other side, the dark side, is it has tentacles everywhere. And the insidious part of it is it just doesn't affect the company. It affects everyone in the chain of that company. So every company that drives a truck for that company, they're delivering the goods. Everybody that makes a widget for that company, makes paper for that company, whatever it is, every single company must be part of the ESG program, or they cannot do business with them. Now, let's just imagine McDonald's, and this is coming because Europe is adopting the ESG standards
as law, mandatory.
Mandatory.
Yes.
So every company that does business in Europe will have to adhere to those standards. So think about McDonald's. Every corporation, every company, every mom and pop farmer that grows potatoes or meat will have to adhere to the EU standards. Otherwise, you'll lose McDonald's. But it's not just that you have to grow them the way they want grown and adopt their, environmental and social justice standards, but even the potato farmer, anyone who supplies him also has to abide by ESG standards. The tentacles of this thing will change America just because we do business with the EU.
Yes. This is a fundamental transformation of the entire Western world, of all of Europe, Canada,
overnight.
And the United States, essentially overnight. They've already moved it through. There's sort of three bodies in the European Union that are involved in lawmaking, and it's already been approved by all three of them in some degree. Right now, they're just trying to figure out how do we reconcile our slight differences. I've looked at all of them. They're all basically the same with just small changes. And you're exactly right. The way it works is large companies that operate in Europe, which is basically the vast majority of large companies in the United States, have a certain amount of revenue in Europe. That means they have to adhere to the ESG system, which means they have to impose it on everyone in their entire supply chain globally, no matter who they are, where they work, how large they are, etc.
And if they don't have an ESG score for that company, because the company's like, I'm not doing it, they cannot buy the products. So the score has to be done in America. It has to be done, or you can't do business with, for instance, Ford.
Yep.
Ford doesn't make all of the parts to everything. Ford doesn't make the rubber, doesn't make the radios, doesn't make the seats. All of that is outsourced.
Yes.
If that company wants to continue to work with Ford, then they must have a score. They must be EU ESG compliant, and every company they work with also. So you're buying leather from somebody and you're making seats, that leather company, if the leather is working with a farmer to get the raw leather, that farmer has to be ESG compliant.
You could just be the transportation company that transports the leather to the factory. That's part of the supply chain.
Right.
And so Europe isn't going to be imposing the rules on those people. They're going to be imposing it on Ford. And then Ford is going to impose it on all of these people down the supply chain. They have no choice. And what they'll do is they'll reach out to all their suppliers. And we know of examples of this happening. I just had a lawmaker tell me this yesterday or the day before. They know of specific examples of this already starting to occur. But you'll have these big companies. They go to the smaller ones and they say, how many electric cars do you have? How many of this? They have a whole survey of questions. And then depending on how you answer it, they'll say, okay, well, if you want to keep doing business with us, you're going to have to improve X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, you can't do business with us anymore. And that's all from this entire, it's because it goes up the supply chain. Somebody at the top, whether it's the European Union at some point in the future, or it's BlackRock, who owns most of the shares of the company, or whatever it is, someone is saying you have to enforce this all the way down the line. So this is not just about Ford. It's not just about McDonald's. It is about every other part of the economy that's going to get wrapped up in this. And by the time you count up all the different companies and you go down the chain of every big company in America that's going to be forced to adhere to this in Europe, because it's only big companies, 150 million euros or so in revenue in Europe, that are going to be forced to adhere to the specific European Union version of this. But by the time you count them all up and you go down their supply chains, it's basically everybody. There's almost no one who is going to be caught up in this. And that's the whole point. That's the point. That's why they're doing it. So this is, in my opinion, even though you're not going to hear this story everywhere, you got to listen to shows like this to hear it. You got to listen to Glenn Beck and The Blaze and places like that. But in my opinion, this is the most important story, period. If you're talking about transforming society, this is the story.
Because we've only told you half of it. We've just told you half of the story. Let me give you the other half. Same story, but there's even more that is going to be affected. Correct me if I'm wrong, but here's the other shoe. This goes up and down the supply chain. So let's say you're Nestle, which is a giant European company. They buy something from America to put into their products. That means the American companies have to change. This also means every bank that wants to do business in Europe has got to be on board with ESG. Every bank.
So interestingly, the most recent draft of this put a carve out for financial institutions.
Thank God.
But they said, we will allow individual countries in the European Union to decide if they're going to enforce that for their companies based in that country.
Of course, the banks aren't going to be hurt by any of this. They're going to love all this.
Of course.
But the other shoe here is that when Nestle sells, you can't sell to countries, companies, et cetera, that don't have a high ESG. You're not supposed to buy or sell.
If you're part of the supply chain in any way at all,
right,
then yes. Now, if you're a customer, they've now tried to change it so that, because in the original one, it was even, you have to look at your customers, essentially.
Right, but if I go to, let's say I'm providing, chocolate milk, I'm Nestle, and I'm going to provide chocolate milk for all the vending machines and all the hospitals.
Yep.
That would apply to ESG standards, would it not? Not individuals, but for the hospitals or big bulk buyers.
I believe so, yes. But it depends on the version. And that's one of the things they're arguing about.
Thank God.
Yeah, because of exactly what you're saying. But in the most radical version of it, which was proposed by the European Parliament, which is really one of the most important parts of all of this, it's the most far-reaching version. It would be the banks would be included in it. It would be every up and down the supply chain.
And the only reason why they won't do that is because they need people to buy European products.
Yeah.
They don't care if you're going to sell them stuff to make products as much as buy the products.
Right.
Please buy the products, or it will be a complete collapse of their economy. It's going to end up as a collapse and total control of your entire life.
Yes.
Where you live, what you eat, where you work, how you work, all of it. And it's about to be passed in the EU.
Yes, and this is really important for people to understand. As bad as all of that is, it's actually worse. This
is why we're having a hard time naming this book. Because it really is. It's worse than you think.
It's worse because imagine now all of these issues and concerns we have, but you're 20 years into the future or 10 years into the future even, and now you have all of this new technology that has been from the very beginning of its development embedded with all of this ESG stuff right from its very beginning. Imagine what the world would be like if the internet had been designed with ESG from the start. And that's the only internet we've ever known.
Zero freedom.
Yeah, that's what all the technology in the future is being embedded with. That's what the great is all about. Really, that's what the book is going to focus on. And that's the next part of all of this. And that's the most terrifying aspect of it. I mean, you want to talk about your life changing, not being able to escape, every part of everything you used to know just disappearing. It's gonna happen if we don't stop it.
Buy hardbound copies of books and preserve things, really, sincerely.
If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to our channel so you'll be sure to see similar videos from Blaze TV with the added bonus of signaling YouTube that your voice and opinion still matters. And if you're looking for more great conservative content, check out one of the 2 videos suggested here.